Welcome to the Smarter Church Communications podcast. I'm your host, Zach Esger, and this is a podcast where we encourage and empower church leaders like you to streamline your communications and connect more effectively with your congregation. Whether you're looking for practical tips, fresh ideas, or strategies to make your message stand out, you're in the right place. Today, I've got the privilege of getting to hang out with Mindy today, and we're going to be talking about what she's learned. She's been in church communications for over 16 years. And in that, there's a lot I know that she's learned. So, Mindy, as you look back and as we sort of kick things off today, I just wanted to ask you, as you look back at 16 years of church communications, what's something that you feel like has helped you and connect with your congregation better and help them get more involved?
Well, one thing that I feel like now just seems like a given, but when I started, this was not in place for my church. We had a website. We've had three iterations of websites, and the first two did not have what we call a sign up and events hub. And so getting that put into place was like a game changer for our church.
Now, what do you mean by a sign up and events hub? Could you explain what that means?
Yeah, so that's just what we call it. But I needed a place where if a person wanted to access, oh, I know this event's going on, but I can't remember what time, or I need to sign my kid up for camp or whatever, a place where anything like that would live at all times. And so I remember one big thing for me was like, what am I going to call it? And I spent like 3 weeks thinking about that because I was like, this is going to be a permanent fixture and you can't just change it because once you train your people to go to it, that's where they're going. So I named it, this is off the question you just asked, but I decided to name it something that even a guest that has no insider knowledge would be able to go, oh, I know what that is.
Yeah.
Because I thought about calling it the hub
Hmm.
and I thought that's kind of cute. And we also live in the hub city. I was like, that's cute. But then I was like, the guest doesn't necessarily know what the hub is. And
Yeah.
so I went with like a really forward, straightforward sign up and events where everything they would need, if they ever wonder what is happening, they know just to go there.
Right. Man, I think that's a great point because you can make it as cool sounding to you as possible, but if a newcomer doesn't know what that is, like I've seen some churches just say like connection hub or resource hub, and it's like, well, I think I know, but I've been around church too, so you even got to really think as like somebody who hasn't been in the church in a long time. Like I really like the idea of just sign up in events, go to sign up in events. In that, what do you feel like? So, sign up in events is this main place where all things live. Like, tell us about that. Like, what would you choose to put on a signups and events page or sort of the central hub, and what would you choose not to maybe put on a sign up and events page?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think it is very individual to each church. So, the church that I work at part time, for instance, we don't post our calendar. So, a lot of churches will post a link to their calendar in PCO or Breeze or whatever. And we do not do that. So, I have a mix of what I would call evergreen events, which are ongoing, do not end, have no start or end date. So, I have a mix of evergreen events. And then you mix in things that are, um, static, no, dynamic
Yeah.
events. So I have a mix of both. And then what we do, we are on the 10 apps platform, of course. And so I order the events in order of, okay, this thing is really important right now. So this is going to be the first thing they see. And an evergreen event may be lower in the
Hmm.
queue. So that's kind of how I manage it.
No, I think that's great. I think in years of doing this, we have a lot of churches that come to us that really want to embed their full calendar view. Like, hey, we really want to see our full Google Calendar on our signups and events page. And one of the things I always like to really encourage them is if you look at any calendar, most things are the titles are cut off, and there's so many regular things that happen throughout the week that it's really overwhelming and really honestly confusing, I think, for your inside people and outside people to really look at a Google Calendar and know, hey, I want to plug into this thing. Like there's nothing that really draws me in. And so I always really encourage people, like you've said, is maybe create like a little sidebar on the side that says, hey, here are the weekly things you can plug in on. Like, here's the time that our youth group meets every week, Tuesdays at this time. Here's when our small groups meet, Wednesday nights at this time. Like, if you have recurring things, put them in there. But it also, the whole world doesn't need to know like when the sanctuary is being cleaned. And there's many church calendars that we sort of encounter that come to us, and they have their cleaning schedule on there. They have their when staff's out on there. And like, for an outside person, they don't need to know that. For an inside person, they don't need to know that. And so I think of what are those recurring events that are static that you need to have on there that people would be looking for, like youth group times, small group times, those types of things. But then the more dynamic area, like you said, those are the sign up and events of, hey, we've got a youth group mission trip coming up. Sign up today. Like, hey, we have a need for volunteers in this area. Sign up today. Like those types of things that are announcements from the front, I think are leading to that. And talk to us a little bit about like communications. Like, how do you see your strategy as you guys first unrolled this new sign up and events hub where all things live? Like, what was that communication strategy on y'all side, and how do you see that impact the way people interact with your sign up and events hub?
Yeah, that's a good question because just because it exists doesn't mean that people know to get there. And so you have to, your communication from the front always has to, I mean, you feel like a broken record.
Yeah.
But sign up in events. And then even on your slides, if there's an event, you tell them where to go to access it. And so it just becomes second nature. And I think, QR codes came back with COVID.
Hmm.
And so we utilize QR codes a lot, but even if you're going to scan that, we are saying this is in sign up and events, and then you scan the QR and you know that's where you're going. Does that make sense? So that they always have a framework of that's where I go.
Yeah, totally. And
Yeah.
I would say we saw really quickly, specifically with y'all and your analytics, of when y'all really started to make that switch and make those announcements from the front with every single announcement. Like it just, like you said, if it's common, if it becomes like common knowledge that you're saying it with every single announcement from the front and it's on every single slide of if there's a way to get involved, if there's any ask to become a volunteer, if there's any type of asking you to take that next step of involvement, there's always from the front. You can find this on our signups and events tab on our website, on our mobile app, on our digital bulletin. It's just over and over again, so much to where it's almost like an inside joke that people just know what you're going to say before you say it. And I think that's huge because then there's no doubt of where I need to go whenever I heard that, oh, I need to sign my kid up for summer camp. It's like they don't even need to think like, well, is that on the youth page? Is that on this page? Now, the cool thing with our platform is it can be on both, and you don't have to update both. You update your announcement in one place, and your youth page is updated, and your sign up at events page. But the cool thing is, I think, is whenever you communicate so regularly with so many different modes, whether it's slides or upfront announcements, you can see from our side the analytics just spike. And for churches, we can tell specifically churches that really make that push in that announcement. On Sundays, we see their analytics just fly through the roof. And one of the main pages is their sign up and events page. So I really encourage churches, if you aren't making that, if you're just making a normal announcement of like, hey, we'd love for you to sign up for this kids summer camp, but you're not giving them the actual steps of how to sign up, you're not going to see people actually follow up. And I remember specifically whenever I was in college ministry and we really were starting to implement this whole one place to sign up, all that, like we would even send out a mass text to students or a mass push notification on their mobile apps during announcement time of like, hey, here's the sign up and events tab, or here's all the sign up and events for this week. And like, as I would say an announcement like, hey, you can find this on our mobile app, or we just send out a push notification, you can go ahead and click that and sign up. We would just have one sign up after the next. And I just think like if we weren't taking those proactive steps of telling people where they could sign up, they wouldn't do it. Like they they would just go about and leave and be like, oh, I should eventually sign up for camp, or I should eventually sign up for that thing. So I think like you said, the more you can communicate that through different channels, the more effective it'll be.
Yeah. I think another, like, this is probably an obvious point, but maybe not. But if you have this hub, it better be easy to find. And so, like, if you get a website through 10 apps, we are always going to put it in your main header menu. in some form or fashion. And then if you have an app, it needs to be a very clearly defined section so that if you're sending people to find it, they're not having to hunt for it.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's great. And I think like you've sort of said too, like all roads will lead to sign up and events. And I think like that is a like something that you have to instill just beyond yourself. Like your youth pastor has to believe that and know that. And your children's pastor, like everybody has to buy into that. Because I think too, what can also happen is if you don't get full staff buy-in, then all of a sudden the children's pastor's emailing all their volunteers of like, oh, hey, I set up this random Google sheet and just go sign up. Here's a link to the Google sheet. And it all of a sudden now we're almost untraining the church of like, that you can find it all in one spot. And so I think one thing as a church communications director or manager, or even if you're just like a small staff of one or two people, like whoever those extra staff members are, you really need to like build this culture within them and train them. And the nice thing with most church database systems is the forms are very easy. And I always encourage people use your church database forms because instead of updating some random Google spreadsheet of all your volunteers' information, if you're using your church database system for that, that information, whenever somebody signs up, they're all of a sudden updating their email or their address. So if they just moved or if they just got a new email, got a new job or something, like all of a sudden your church database now just got updated, and you're no longer sending out bad emails to an old email or to an old address or something like that. So I think too, like maybe talk some like how have y'all seen y'all's integration in your signups and in your forms on these announcements? Like how easy is that with 10 apps and integrating like y'all's external database into these signups and events? So maybe talk us through like an actual registration form on these sign up and events pages.
Right. So we use Planning Center, and there are registrations and events within Planning Center. And the way our way up the mountain is just to have an event box in the 10 apps website and then easily link the registration form or event inside there.
That's
And there's
awesome.
different ways you can go about that with 10 apps, but that's just how we do it, and it's very, very simple.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's huge to just make it a super simple button that somebody can click. And the cool thing, we just came out in this last year in our 10 apps package, a brand new integration to where you create an event or a registration on Planning Center and it can automatically create that sign up an event on your website. The cool thing is it's actually on your website and it's not just linking to the Planning Center page and Church Center. It's your own page on your own site. So it helps with SEO, but it also allows you to design it creatively if you need to add some extra information, add some images, things like that. But then you can also from that spot then say, all right, now create a social media post, send it to our worship slides, send it to our TVs, send this to our e-newsletter, send this to our digital bulletin, send this to our mobile app, all within one click. So you just say, hey, I created this thing, now boom, I want to send it everywhere, and you can do that. So I think for churches, our main goal has been to help you save time that you're not copying and pasting the same thing over and over again to all these different places, but also to help you really effectively communicate that same message and that it's the same and it's consistent across all of your channels. And I think one of the nice things of having a central point that Mindy's talking about today with the signups and event hub is that this is the place that people can come, and really your social media is pointing back to that as well, because your social media post has a link that's bringing them back to that event in your signups and events hub or your signups and events tab on your website. And so really you don't have to think extra about doing that on your social media post. It automatically puts that link in there to the right page on your website. So I just think like the less you have to do to communicate more effectively allows you to spend more time with people, deeply thinking about your communication strategies, different things like that. But I think one of the things I'm just really impressed with the way that y'all have done things, Mindy, is just by reiterating it, because people will forget. And I think if you just make like a couple of announcements at the beginning of the year of like, oh, hey, you can find anything we ever say in announcement time, you can always find that on our website. Like if you do that, 3 months in, they're going to forget. And so I think like every single announcement you have to have that tagline of, you can find this on our website, on our mobile app, on our signups and events tab. And like, the more you can say that, the more you can do that, the more people are just going to naturally be like, oh, okay, I'm ready to sign up type thing. So any other thoughts or tips you think would be helpful for somebody that's brand new and thinking in this line of thought of, okay, instead of having things just on the youth page and just on this, or Google form here and a planning center form here, like, how would you encourage somebody who is in that sort of chaos right now? How would you encourage them to begin to take these steps of, okay, I'm ready to start streamlining things and bringing it all into one place?
Well, I think one thought I had that is a little different than what you're talking about is that there may be churches listening that are like, we don't need that. We don't have that much going on.
Mm,
It's not that hard. And I think if the answer is, oh, I want to be baptized or I want to volunteer, email the church secretary, that's not going to be a sustainable solution or a scalable
yeah.
solution. So even if you don't have a ton going on,
Hmm.
start with this. Have a hub where you have all the things, and maybe every button clicked goes to the church secretary, but saying email the church secretary can't be the answer. Does that make sense?
Yep, absolutely. No, that's huge. That's a great thought. And I think, like you said, like, to me, I think sometimes whenever we talk about this to some churches, like you said, they're like, oh, I don't have enough things going on. But it's like, no, you really do, because all sign up and events is really this easy step to help people take their next steps in their
Mhm.
faith. And that
Mhm.
could be signing up for a small group. That could be baptism. That could be like, if you have a next steps class, or like a discipleship class, or an on ramp for volunteering. Like,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
if you're a church with a heartbeat, you have places for volunteers, because we're supposed to call people into ministry, that like, we are that chosen people, that royal priesthood. And like, your church, I know, has opportunities for people to serve and for people to volunteer. So that alone is just an easy one that you could always have on your signups and events page. But I think everybody always has some type of next steps in their discipleship process, whether that's small groups or something else. And so put that on there, because that's what people are really looking for. And we see it pretty often too. We can see people's actual journey as they come to a website and they begin to click around. And people are looking for those next steps, for those places to serve, and even if they're a first time guest, they want to know, hey, what's this journey look like for me as a family? I just moved to town here. Like, what are there ways for me and my family to get plugged in a deeper way? And so that might be discipleship, that might be serving, that might be missions. There's a lot
Mhm.
of different ways that could look. So I think thinking outside the box is a great idea. And like you said, like, having a button click versus, hey, just email the secretary, here's a link to the email. People then have to like sort of copy that email and go to their email. Like,
Mhm.
make things as simple as you can, no
Mhm.
matter how big or small your church is. So
Yeah, and I think for you said, so where do you start? I think I would start with your evergreen events. I would, and for me, like, honestly, there's some things that are in sign up and events that don't really make sense, but I'm like, it's there because people are gonna want to find it. And
mhm.
so it's kind of almost like Sunday resources is something that our church does where there's multiple things, reading plans, discussion questions, all these things. I have that in sign up and events. It's not the only place it lives, but I'm like, they're going to be here, so let's put anything there that they might want to access.
Yeah,
And then another thing I do with our event boxes, and this is how the Tent Apps interface works. Um, I keep our student ministry, our kids ministry, college ministry pages static. The event boxes are the dynamic piece for that.
yeah.
And so that way we're changing the event box as to what's happening each week in those ministries. And the web page stays pretty much the same with the exception of updating pictures and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
And that really works well for us too.
I think that's awesome. That's a good thought. The other thing I was just thinking of, where a lot of churches come to us, is they even maybe have this idea of doing something like a signups and events page, but whenever they come to us, they still have all their Easter stuff and all their Easter information up from 3 or 4 months ago. And so they feel overwhelmed and like, I can't keep up with this. And so I don't even want to attempt to do this. And it's like, hey, with our system, you can actually set up all of your events and all of your sign up type of things to have an expiration date. So, hey, on this day, go ahead and take this off of our website. And so I think just to know that puts so many people's minds at ease, because otherwise it does feel daunting to add all these things and then have to remember I have to go remove them all. And so I
Mhm.
would just encourage you, if you're at a place where this all of the talk that we just had feels overwhelming or daunting because you don't want to have to remember to come take it off, if you move over to 10 apps package with us, it'll automatically pull that off.
Mhm.
And so I just think that is a huge piece, because if you have a lot of outdated content on there, you're almost training people, hey, this isn't a place of value that we really value, which I would say, honestly, should be a huge place of value. If you're a single, like if you're just a pastor and there's nobody else on staff and it's just you, this is of huge value, because you can put all of those places of, hey, we want to help you take your next step in your faith. We want to help you take that next step, whether that's discipleship or serving or missions, like, or signing up for a youth camp, whatever it is, like you're calling people into those next steps. And if there's not an easy way for them to find those, or a way to get involved or plugged in, then people sort of sense that as like a value or a culture thing. And I know pastors don't want that vibe to come off, but sometimes inadvertently, I think our websites, or especially sort of our next steps area on our websites, share that. And so I think by putting attention into the detail of what we say, how we say it, having up-to-date information, make sure there's not Easter stuff on there in the middle of summer, really communicates that we care about people taking those next steps. So it's not about a sign up. Like you and I would both say, like, it's not about how many kids like came to summer camp type thing, but like it, in the end, it is too about like each person is a soul, and we want each person to easily be able to sign up for summer camp and not get lost. And so I think by paying attention to these details of how people can find things and how they can sign up, and making it easy for them and really accessible, will help you see people take those next steps, I think. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
awesome. Well, any other thoughts you have as you wrap up today's thoughts on sign up and events tab on the church's website?
I think the only other thing is I would just have access to sign up in events in multiple spots.
Hmm.
Like I said, for sure in your main header menu, but just as you scroll down the home page or the new here page, in your footer, just make sure it's accessible in a lot of places. Because I always think what's obvious to me, like there may be 10 people looking at a website and they may get to sign up in events all in a different way, or their brain thinks in different ways.
Yep.
And so just make sure it's important enough that it needs to be all over your site, I believe.
Absolutely. No, that's
Yeah.
great. Well, thanks, Mindy, for helping us think through how we can help people easily and clearly take their next steps. And if you want to follow along and learn more tips and tricks about how to help your church engage in a deeper way, we'd love for you to subscribe to our podcast, follow along, give us a like, give us a comment. Those help others find us and know more about helping them streamline their church communications. But until next time, we'd love to stay in the loop. So shoot us a message if you have any questions. But we hope that you'll keep reaching your community and your church with clarity and purpose. Until next time, we'll see you later.